Hi, welcome to Delicious and Light. I'm Dina D'Ambrosi, and today we're going to be making Italian pasta salad that is both delicious and low calorie, low fat compared to the regular type of Italian pasta salad. This is great. We're going over a friend's house tomorrow to watch some football, and this is the kind of recipe you really want to make it at least a day in advance because you want it to be in the refrigerator, refrigerating for 24 hours so that the flavors really mesh together. It's really delicious. I've done it so many times for company. So you want to start off with 8 ounces of pasta, and most pasta boxes come in 16 ounces, so you're going to use about a half a box of pasta. You're going to do a 1/4 cup of basil. Use fresh basil. It really does make a difference. A half a cup of low-fat mozzarella, a 1/4 cup of Kalamata olives, 2 cloves of garlic, a whole cup of low-fat, or I even use fat-free Italian salad dressing, and 8 ounces of Italian cured meats, just to give you an example of what that is. We have Italian salami, we have prosciutto and capicola, and then 1 can of artichoke hearts. So the first thing you want to do is you want to cook your pasta because that takes a few minutes. So we're just starting to come to a boil now. I'm just going to add a little salt to bring it to temperature. And yeah, there we go. There it goes. And what you want to do is put about a half a box in. And let that boil for about 8 minutes. So what we'll do is just stir this around. And let that boil for 8 minutes. While that is cooking, you can still move forward with your recipe. So what you do is just take your Italian meats, and you're going to cut everything into bite-sized pieces. So just to save some time, I like to stack the meats, and you can slice and dice all at the same time and get them all in your mixing bowl. So get a fairly large mixing bowl because you'll find that the macaroni is really going to take up some space there. So we're just going to run our knife through this one way and cut it up the next way. This requires very little cooking, really just boiling water and making pasta. So if you know how to make pasta, this recipe is that's it. I mean, you'll find this super easy to do. So what you want to do is just separate your meats in the bowl. And let's get the last little bit here. This is what provides the flavor. Now, these cured meats are not low fat at all, but what you do is this is for a large crowd, and everything else that you're providing is pretty much low fat, like the cheese, and we're just using a 1/4 cup of olives. We really don't need a lot of olives for this at all because a little bit goes a long way. So we're just going to cut up these meats. Pop them in. All right, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but we do use 2 cloves of garlic. Garlic is a fantastic way to add a lot of flavor to a dish, and it adds no fat and virtually no calories. So we're going to do our 2 cloves of garlic in here. Going to add the mozzarella cheese. We're going to chop up these olives so that you get a little bit of flavor in every bite that you take. Running away on me. So I like to chop things kind of small so that the flavors are evenly distributed. I always go by, all right, what's a bite-sized piece or less? Get a good chop on them. Let's see here. And this recipe is already listed on deliciouslight.com, the website, so you can check it out there. All of the measurements are there, so you don't have to write this down or remember this recipe at all. The next thing is the basil. So we're just gonna chop that real fine as well. If you have any stems on your basil, remove that first before you chop it up. So there is a lot of basil that's used in this, but fresh basil is absolutely delicious. It's nice and sweet, adds a lot of flavor.
Hey Dina, quick question.
Yeah.
I noticed that you're chopping and you're using like kind of a scoopy thing there, and the other thing I noticed was on the garlic, you don't use your good knife, but you go in and get a different knife out of the drawer. Why do you do that?
Those are great questions. So I'm trying to preserve our knives. Knives are very expensive, and I like to use a good knife, and I highly recommend spending the money in the investment in a knife. We use carbon with a steel overlay, stainless steel overlay, and what that does is it enables the knife to be sharpened over a long period of time. I have some knives that are over 20 years old because I invested in good knives, but I also want to preserve them. And the best way to preserve them is I have this scoop. You never want to take a knife on the sharp edge and scoop onto a cutting board. You will dull your knife and it will ruin over time. The other thing is when I mince the garlic, I want to use a steak knife or a cheap knife for the same reason. I'm scraping against this metal. So if I'm going to dull a knife, I want it to be some cheap, $5 knife that I got at a local store as opposed to a really good knife, because I don't want to dull the good knife. So that's a great question, and that's why I always do that in these videos. It's to preserve my good knives. So the next thing that goes in here will be a can of artichokes. So I'm just going to drain them and rinse them real quick and then chop them up real small too. I'm just going to use a towel so that I'm not dripping all over the floor. We happen to have a kitchen floor that is hardwood, which is great on your feet, but you got to be very careful about if you get anything wet. You want to make sure that you dry off your floor right away so you don't do that, ruin that. All right, so we're just going to chop this, and we're starting to get close to the time where we got to check the macaroni. All right. Get these artichokes in and then chop up the rest. This recipe is great. It's really just a matter of chopping. And that's it. Very little cooking. Also, don't forget that you can follow us on Facebook as well as on YouTube so that you could get information about videos that just come out when they first come out. And also, I just want to mention that Apex Nova is supporting these videos. At Apex Nova, we do character development, 2-week program that is combined with a fundraiser for the schools and the PTA. And the nice thing about that is one of the things we always talk about is healthy mind and healthy body, and part of that is a healthy low-fat diet, keeping a healthy weight. And so that's where these recipes come from, in support of low-calorie, low-fat cooking. Let's see if our macaroni is done. Just take one out here, hopefully not get burnt. Let's see where we are. No, we need about another minute. So I'm going to let this boil for another minute, and I'll be right back. All right, our pasta is ready. And I had a question. We're just going to grab the strainer and I'm going to answer the question. So the question was, what kind of pasta do you use in this dish? And the answer is absolutely anything that is your favorite thing to use. So you could go with spirals, you could go with shells, which is what we have tonight. And once your pasta is cooked, you want to make sure you rinse it in cold water for 2 reasons. One is you want it to stop cooking. You do not want the pasta to continue to cook. The second reason you do that is you're making a pasta salad. So when you put the shells or any kind of macaroni that you're using, into all the other ingredients, you don't want them to melt or cook because this is a cold salad. So I'm just rinsing it out real well to make sure that it is actually chilled. And just needs another little bit. So the only pasta that you would not want to use with this is something like a spaghetti. It's just not that kind of recipe, and the spaghetti would not mesh real well with all of the chopped ingredients you have. So now that we're done with this, we're just going to bring it over. Put it in the bowl with the rest of the ingredients. Toss it with Italian dressing. Now I will say this, some people really don't like a fat-free Italian dressing, so this is what I would tell you. Taste it first, see if you like it, and then add stuff to it. So some of the ways that you could really zip up a fat-free Italian dressing is you could add a little balsamic vinegar or red wine vinegar to it, and that will add some flavor. You can also add pepper, taste it for salt. The cured meats tend to be pretty salty, but if you know the real crowd pleaser with your guests is to have something a little saltier, by all means do that. And you don't just taste it today, taste it tomorrow after it's refrigerated, because you may want to add some things. Now, I know my husband very much, and he would say, the first thing he would say is, did you add any little red pepper flakes in it? And I'm not sure, I might, but he likes a little heat with it. So you're not going to find these ingredients in the base recipe, but if you want to experiment a little bit and put a little bit of red pepper in there, you can. I'm just going to try it right now to see if it needs any black pepper or anything like that. And I may add a little red pepper flakes. So let's see what this is like. Very good. For me, it's salty enough. The garlic that we added really zips up the dressing. And I know that the people that I'm hanging out with tomorrow watching football like a little bit of spice, so I am going to get a few red pepper flakes. So be careful with this because everybody's heat index is a little different. So I'm truly only going to put in about a half a teaspoon. And heat is something you can always add, but you can't take away. So I'm literally just going to put in about a half a teaspoon, just to sprinkle a little bit in. That'll add a little heat. And I know it'll be a crowd pleaser for the friends that I'm hanging out with tomorrow. But use your best judgment with that. You know how much heat your friends like or don't like. And that is it. I'm going to put this in another container to refrigerate overnight. I'll taste it again before I serve it tomorrow, and we're just going to enjoy. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.